So, and my interest in women in agriculture, because I was working and helped form the Iowa Farm Unity Coalition and the Prairie Fire Rural Action, and went to work for Prairie Fire and worked on women's issues. Because when I was going around the countryside, when we were going through this big upheaval that was going on, I would be at meetings and women would say, "You're calling yourself a farmer?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I didn't grow up on a farm, but I learned to farm, and I went through an apprenticeship, and I now do everything." And I said, "You know, what are you?" And they said, "Well, I'm a farmer's wife." And I said, "But what do you do during the day?" "Well, you know, I feed the hogs, I milk the cows, I run to town to get parts, I fix machinery." And I said, "You know, that sounds like a farmer." And they said, "Well, I'm a farmer's wife." And then through the 80s, it was the women that really carried the men through. It just seems like, kind of for a start kind of image that a lot of us have from the 80s is, and it just keeps in my mind, is the one incident that happened in eastern Iowa where the farmer went to I think he shot his wife, went to the bank, shot the banker, and then went home and committed suicide. Hills, I think, and that just is like, yeah, you know, women were holding together the farm. They were the ones doing the books. They knew what was going on, tried to kind of let the husband know what was going on, but there was a lot of denial out there. And one of the best movies that portrayed that was Country with Jessica Lange and Sam Shepard. And it's very true. I mean, Prairie Fire, a lot of people in this room helped make that film or write the different parts and things. So we had the structural adjustment, and then we had all the trade agreements that were going on, and the trade agreements that are going on with Korea. And it was like, all of this stuff is just topsy-turvy, and it was to whose benefit? Who's benefiting from what's going on here? So we learned about dumping corn in countries where then it put farmers out of business because it was cheaper to buy the corn than it was to grow the corn. And so, we just, all of these things that happened, it's like, who drove that? Where did that come from? And it's so obvious. When we have this revolving door, that's when I learned about the revolving door. The people who are working as the Secretary of Agriculture or in the USDA or in these agencies, are walking out the back door and walking in the front door, walking out the back door of Monsanto and walking in the front door of USDA. So how can we have anything that's going to give us people, farmers, small towns and that, any say? So we've been through years and years of, started out with NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, and then the GATT, the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, WTO, the World Trade Organization that we have now, the FTAA, the Free Trade Agreement of the Americas, and so many more that I can't even, name. And at all of those, we've always had a presence, and we've had a presence with the peasant farmers from around the world through the La Via Campesina and through our working with farmers from all over the world. We find a place that we could meet, find money to get there, and make our policies that we believe are fair policies. And so, I think it will all come together. I think there's pieces of it to come together, but I think that there's a time in our history where, and it may not be when I'm still living, that we will have some fairness in the world. It has to be. I'm an optimist, and it has to be. But so I'll leave you with a couple things that are on my mind tonight, and I've been at a number of meetings in the last couple of weeks and talking about Iowa. Iowa is #1 in hog production and #1 in corn production, #1 in soybeans, and everybody goes around and toots their horn on that, and it's like, and Iowa is dead, and the soil is dead. There's not hardly a living piece of soil except on farms that are sustainably done. Francis Dickey's, for instance, it just, now we're using the soil as a medium. So phosphorus in the stinking, creeks and rivers, and we're responsible for killing, the fish in the Gulf of Mexico with the hypoxia. It's like, when you look at maps about where the hot spots are for nitrogen and phosphorus and that, it's Iowa, it's Minnesota, it's Nebraska, it's the Mississippi watershed. It's like, why are we letting that be done? Why is it that we are ruining our environment and letting this stuff be done? And at some point, we'll get a critical mass of people that understand that it's only been to the benefit of the corporations, and it's not to ours. We're sacrificing our children's lives, our health standards, our own lives by the diseases that we're contracting. And I just recently worked on a press release, a press conference last week from Pesticide Action Network that just put out a report on children on jeopardizing our future and the high rise in autism and in ADHD and all these behavior problems in childhood cancer. That's our most precious resource. Well, why are we letting that happen to our children, and what's going to happen to our future? So, again, I don't want to leave on a down note, because I think people like you all that are working on this, on Occupy the World Food Prize, Occupy Wall Street, but it does seem that we are at a disadvantage sometimes, those of us that live in the rural areas, that it's more dominated by the urban and the urban voices. There's more of them. And so we always have to fight for our place at the table, and as women have to fight for their place at the table of decision making. So I want to congratulate you on being here tonight and for doing this work. And then I also want to say that for the next year, the WILP, the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, is going to be doing a study on the World Food Prize and everything. And so to find out more information about that, you can contact the organization. That they're going to start a study session, and then over the next year, to have a deeper analysis about what's going on